want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day, my book, The Mirror of Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you. Now tuned into the show where you learn and bring out, if you already had it, the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any person to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in the one package here. What you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the book, the show known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic, we're talking to the freelancers and the solopreneurs and entrepreneurs out there. The title is CEO you and employee you. There's two different versions of you. If you are running your own business, whether as an entrepreneur with some people working for you, a solopreneur where maybe it's just you doing everything, you're a freelancer where you just are moving from contract to contract, job to job, you have to be the CEO of your business and you're an employee in your business. You're doing some work, maybe, probably within the business in some capacity. So today's topic is about those of you who are in those categories, or maybe one day you will be, and you need to sharpen how you utilize your own time. And those of you who, even if you're not in one of these spaces, but you want to make better use of your time, you need to figure out better how to utilize your time. If you listen into what I'm saying here today and you read between the lines, metaphorically, everything that I say here today can apply to anyone. You don't have to be a freelancer, solopreneur, entrepreneur. And I actually got this idea from reading a really good book called Principles by Ray Dalio. Any of you who has not read that book, and actually let me back up before I even get to that. Any book that I ever mention on this show, you should go get it and read it. Whether that's the audio book, the physical book, the digital book, go get the book, get the whole book. Don't get I know nowadays people make a book of a summary of a book. Don't do that. Get the whole book so you get all the details, so you get all the information. Don't go and invest in getting half of the information. That makes no sense. So this book again is called Principles by Ray Dalio. He's actually a finance guy, but the book is not really about finance. He uses his background in finance, of course, to explain some of his own story, and maybe that's probably about the first 20% of the book, but the last 80% of the book is him just explaining his principles of how he deals with other people, how we deal with ourselves, how you evaluate yourself, your business, your work, the people that you're dealing with, whether you want to keep them around, get rid of them, whether to bring somebody on, when to bring somebody on, how to know. Is a whole lot of great principles. It's a great topic, great title of the book. And actually, a lot of the things that I hear Ray Dalio say in the book reminds me of some of the things that I've talked about, but he explains it in his way, through his own lens, through his experiences, and in some ways a little bit differently than how I would explain things. And of course, he has some things in there that I don't talk about, and I say some things here that he doesn't talk about. So I suggest, again, the book, Principles by Ray Dalio. I'll probably mention that book in several episodes. I think this is the first one I've ever mentioned it, but I will have several moving forward where I'll mention it again, because there are a lot of things he said in that book that inspired me to share some other material here on this show. So again, stay tuned for more from that, but go get the book so you know it before I even bring it up. But each of us in our own lives, as I've told you before, Malcolm X, when I talked about in the self-determinism episode, each of us is the boss of our own organization. Each of us is the CEO of our own corporation. So it's just you incorporated. You swipe up your name. So if your name is Mike Incorporated, Dre Incorporated, whatever, whoever you are, you Inc. is your company. Your whole life is a business. It costs you money. It costs money for you to be born. It will cost money for you to be buried when you're dead. And it costs money for you to be alive right now. And if money is being exchanged, then that means we're talking business, which means you are a business. Whether that business is doing well or not is for you to decide, but we're all a business whether you want to be or not. Even if you're dead, you're a business. All right. Michael Jackson is doing great business and he's been dead for 10 years. All right. The CEO, you need to know which workers to employ. And the workers that you employ in your business may not always be you. It may not be a smart decision to have you as the number one employee in your business. But as we get into deeper into our topic here today, you'll understand that a whole lot more clearly. And if you don't take notes on what I say here in these shows, well, first of all, you're not going to remember 99% of what I say. And secondly, you probably won't be able to enact any of it because I'm giving these to you on a daily basis. There's too many of them for you to remember everything. So I suggest you go grab a pen and pad, pause this right now, grab a pen and pad, or pull your phone out, or pause this episode until you can get somewhere where you can actually take notes on it, or listen to it for enjoyment right now the first time through, and then listen to it again when you have the capacity, you got your hands free, and you can take notes and write down things that you get from this that you can actually put into effect in life. Because as I said, you will not remember the majority of what I say here on the show. So please do not utilize this show the same way you utilize other media out there and just jerk off on it for entertainment purposes, because that's not what it's for. Though you may be entertained, that's not the purpose of it. You probably know that if you're subscribed to this show. Take notes and actually put this stuff into effect, but you can't do it if you're not taking notes. So let's get into it. Point number one. Today's topic is CEO you and employee you. CEO you, this is the first point, sees the big picture of what's going on and what needs to happen. That's what a CEO does. The person who's on top in any organization. Again, if your organization is just one person, you're going to be doing all these things. You need to see the big picture of what's going on in your life and your business, and you need to figure out what needs to happen next in your life and your business. I was just listening this morning when I'm recording this to a speech by a guy by the name of Patrick Bet David. He has a YouTube channel called Valuetainment. If you're spending time on YouTube, maybe you come across his material. So he interviews people. He does his own solo videos. He's a professional speaker. I believe he's in the mortgage industry, loan or mortgage industry. I believe that's what he works in. But I heard him giving this speech, this video, a video of a speech that he had given. And the first thing that he said in the speech was, any of you who knows anything about chess, and I did a whole episode dedicated to the game of chess. It was one of my favorite games, even though I don't play it too often these days. But I talked about all the principles that how chess has parallels directly to real life. So you should learn how to play that game. It's a three-dimensional game as opposed to something like checkers, which any idiot can learn how to play. But one of the things that Patrick Bet David said at the beginning of his speech was that any chess player, an amateur chess player tries to see like 2 or 3 moves ahead. A pretty good chess player sees maybe 4, 5, 7 moves ahead. And a grandmaster chess player, like the people who like play chess for a living and actually make a full-time income from playing chess, they try to see 15 moves ahead. And this is what you need to be doing as a CEO. So not only see what's going on right now today and have a clear picture of it in your life, the business of your life, but also be able to see 15 moves ahead. What's the next thing that I'm doing? What's the next thing after that? What's the next thing after that? And again, think of it strategically. As we talked about last week, strategizing in your life and in your business. So it's not just seeing what happened and wishing what you want to happen next, but also strategizing, having some kind of plan in place with contingencies for what you want to happen next. So the CEO is the person who works on the business, meaning you see what's going on and you say, all right, this is the next thing that needs to happen in the business here, the changes we need to make. The employee version of you, they work in the business. So there's a difference between the two. So you think of the CEO of a company such as, I don't know, let's say Apple. Or we'll use Steve Jobs. We use him often as an example. So even though he's not alive anymore, when he was the CEO, his job was to work on the business. In other words, what is the overall direction of this company, Apple? What's the next big thing that we're going to do? What do we want to do about this new technology that's coming out? What do we want to do about this situation on hand right here? What do we want to do about this thing that the audience, that our fans, our customers, our tribe is saying? He worked on the business. He would shape the overall direction of what the company was doing. Now, the employee, that means the person who's working at the Apple store or the person who works at the Apple factory repairing laptops that need a new battery or something like that. That person's working in the business. In other words, they're given a specific job, and that's exactly what they need to be doing. They're not looking at the big picture of Apple as a company, either because they can't see the big picture because they're too deep down in the weeds, which is their job to be down in the weeds, or they couldn't see the big picture simply because they don't have all the information that the CEO has. That's the difference between the two. So if you are solo right now in your life, whether you're an employee working a 9-to-5 job, you're a entrepreneur, freelancer, solopreneur working just by yourself, you need to be doing both of these. Not only do you need to be down in the weeds, knowing the details of everything that's going on. Like, for example, Steve Jobs doesn't know that I had some problem with my phone. I had to take it to an Apple store and get it repaired, and I was pissed off. He would have never known about that because he's a CEO. He can't know about every little thing that's happening. But you, as employee, the employee version of you, you need to know about that. At the same time, you need to have a big picture view of what's going on overall in your life / business. So you got two jobs here as a CEO and the employee. If again, you are just on your own right now, you may think that puts you at a disadvantage because some people may have more than one person working with them or in their business and it's just you by yourself. Well, you know what? You're right. And that's just the game that you're in right now. Those are the cards you've been dealt. You can change the cards anytime that you wish. Go find some people to help you. And if you don't have them right now, you got to do these jobs until you get it the way that you want it to be. The CEO version of you should be smart enough to figure that out. So you see how all this works? So the CEO works on the business, the employee works in the business. Here's the key thing. The CEO version of you, the CEO you, we'll just call it that. You have to make smart decisions about how to use employee you. And also you need to think about when you might need to replace employee you. In other words, let me give you an example. As the CEO of my own personal business, it's a good idea for me, as I already told you, to look at the overall and figure out, all right, me as the employee, I can't do every single job. I can't send out, when I send out an email, I can't send out 10,000 individual one-by-one emails. So I can hire an employee in the form of SaaS, what we call software as a service. So I can get a MailChimp or Infusionsoft or SendGrid or some program or that sends emails out to a whole bunch of people at the same time, bulk email. So I can use software as an employee. Or I can go hire somebody to just be the email person. All right, I want you to send an email out about this, or I just wrote this email, share with you the file, get this email sent out, make sure you mention this, this, and this, send it to these people in this group, in this segment. So you can find a person who can do this, and there are often increasingly more options of software available to replace the employee version of you from certain tasks that you are doing. So these are things that you need to be thinking about as a CEO, how you can utilize employee you, because the problem is employee you can't do everything all the time. You're going to run yourself into the ground, number one. Number two, even if employee you did do everything, and I've been in this position, I'll tell you how. If employee you is doing everything, all the detailed tasks, what's going to happen is you're going to be working hard every single day, but the business is not moving forward at all. Maybe some of you know that feeling. Maybe you're feeling it right now. Maybe you felt it sometime in your past. I have definitely felt that way in the past, where I'm like, damn, I'm doing all this work every day. I feel like I'm working hard as hell, but the business is not moving forward. Time has passed, but I feel like I'm on a treadmill of working hard, but not really getting anywhere. That's because employee me was doing all this work, but the CEO me wasn't doing anything. I was definitely unaware of this whole concept of CEO me. So once I got clear on who CEO me was, then I need to do better jobs of, first of all, delegating work. We talked about that in episode, I believe it was 1101, delegating work in your business or in your life, period. You don't even have to have a business to delegate. You can delegate to other people. And if you take your business suits to the dry cleaners, that's delegating. You're paying them to do something that you're not going to do for yourself. If you ever ordered Uber Eats or you order some groceries from the store and have somebody deliver it to you, that is delegation. You're using your money to replace time and skill. That is delegation. So you can do that in many areas of your life and or your business, because you as the employee, you cannot do every job at the same time. You will either not have the talent to do it, you won't have the time to do it, or you'll be doing so much of that you'll never do any CEO tasks. And what you'll find is the worst case scenario is that you're on a treadmill, getting nowhere fast, even though time is going by. Point number 2. Today's topic is understanding the differences between CEO you and employee you. First of all, understanding that they both exist, then understanding the differences between the two. So let's talk about employee you now. Now we know the CEO you works on the business, employee works in the business. Employee you may not be the best option for every single job, as I just started to explain. I had a guy once who I was working with as a coach. He was a client of mine. And he was telling me how he didn't really have a whole lot of time. He felt like he was doing too much work in his business. He was always short of time. He was time poor. He was money rich, but he was time poor. And so I asked him, okay, well, what are you doing in your job? And he started telling me that he was doing all of these things. He started listing all of these things that he was doing at his job, even though he had people working for him. So I asked him, well, what aspect of your job? So the first thing I'm thinking in my mind before I even pointed out to him verbally was, all right, this guy's doing all these tasks, even though he has people working for him on his staff. So I said, what aspect of your job, if you can only do one thing, what would you actually spend your time doing? And the guy was like, Well, I love everything, Dre. I love doing the bookkeeping. I love doing the accounting. I love replying to customer emails. I love doing the creative direction of what we're doing in the company. I love looking over the stuff that my staff does. And he started listing all these things that he does and claimed that he loved to do every single one of them. And I finally said to him, if you could only do one thing, what would it be? And he finally answered the question, that he would look at the overall creative direction of his company. I said, if you could only do one thing, you wouldn't do the bookkeeping, would you? You wouldn't be doing the accounting. And he laughed. He had his wife with him. They both started laughing like, no, I wouldn't do that. And the thing is, you as the CEO, you had to be wise enough and mature enough to step outside of yourself. You have to self-distance. So there's another episode of this show that we've done already. You have to be able to self-distance and know when to relieve employee you of their duties to find somebody better, someone more qualified, or someone better or more qualified. Qualified doesn't necessarily mean that they're more skilled. It just means that they have more time. All right. If I have more time on my hands than you have, then I'm more qualified to do a time-consuming task than you are. Even though you may be better at it than me, I have the time, you don't. So I'm qualified, you're not. So being more qualified doesn't necessarily mean more skilled or better or more talented or more experienced. It just means that one person has more resources, time, money, attention, energy, focus, than another person has. So you need to be wise enough as the CEO of your life to know when the employee in your life is doing things that the employee you should not be doing simply because you are devoid of the necessary resources for doing it. Find someone who is better equipped so you can make better use of the employee you's time. This is all about delegation. Again, episodes number 664, episodes 1100 is where I talked about delegation. Just because you as an employee can do a job doesn't mean employee you should do a job. Let me repeat that line. For every freelancer and solopreneur out there, please listen closely to what I just said. Write it down. Just because you can do a job does not mean you should do the job. And all you need to do to figure out whether it is worth it for any freelancer, entrepreneur, solopreneur, you've never delegated work before, you've never actually paid someone to do work to replace you because you feel like it's a, quote, waste of money, close quote, or you think you can't afford it. That's another air quotes, can't afford it. What you can't afford is to keep utilizing your own time, which is worth X amount of dollars, to do things that are worth less than X, because that means you're losing money. In other words, and I explained this in the delegation episode, so let me just give it to you really quick. If your time is worth, let's say, $100 an hour, and you're doing a task which someone else could do for $5 an hour, that means when you do it, it's costing $100. It's costing you $100 because an hour worth of your time is worth $100, right? But if someone else did it, it's worth $5 because you could just pay them $5. So if you do it, it's costing you $95 because that's the difference between what you could be getting this done for and what you're actually getting it done for. And if once you understand that equation, you will be more willing to part with your money, which is more of an investment when you're delegating. You're investing in time. Is not actually a cost, but you can call it what you want to call it. If you have some emotional hang up with making any type of investment, if you do, then I understand. Listen to episode 609. I'll help you out with that. But once you start making this investment, first of all, you got to understand the equation of how much your time is worth. You need to figure that out. Then ask yourself, how much could I get this done for? And if the difference is, if you can make money on it, then you should be delegating. It makes you money and it helps you to stop doing all of the work yourself, and then you can focus on doing the things that you do best, which is probably not everything. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. The CEO version of you needs to be able to see this and let the employee know, hey, you don't work here anymore. All right, go find a new job. You don't do the bookkeeping anymore. You don't answer phone calls anymore. You don't respond to emails anymore. You don't edit videos anymore. You don't do these things anymore. You are fired from this job. Your only job now is to do this thing, and don't come over here anymore. That's the CEO's job. You as the CEO need to have that conversation with yourself, maybe often. Point number 3. Today's topic is understanding CEO you and employee you and each's job duties. Point number 3 is the employee's work is to do things that maintain what's happening. That's the job of an employee. When you hire someone to work for you, you delegate tasks to another person. Their job is to maintain what is going on. For example, I have someone who does the editing of this show. So I'll record the audio, write out the title, what I want it to be. Maybe I'll do a quick little write up. Everything else that you see that comes with this, adding the advertisements and what goes before and after the actual content and putting it up and making sure it comes out so you can listen to it every day. Someone else does those things. It's their job to maintain that. Just make sure episodes come out every day. We switch up the advertisements, we switch up how we're going to do the intros and outros, where it's going to come out, what time, and all that stuff. All those are little maintenance tasks. Now I can give the direction of how those are going to go. We can collaborate and talk about it and swap ideas and opinions. But the job of someone who is working, the employee version of you or anyone you have as an employee that you're delegating to, their job is to maintain what's going on. You as the CEO, show them what to do or let them know what you want done or how you want it done. Their job is to just keep it going, all right, to keep the machine running smoothly. That's what an employee does. The CEO's job is to decide what is running, to decide what's happening, to decide what is going smoothly, what's supposed to happen next, why it's happening, what to keep doing, what to stop doing, what to do more of, what to do less of. That's the CEO's job. That is the overall direction. Okay? Moving things forward and growing the organization, the entity, that's the job of the CEO. The employee can be a part of this process, but the CEO decides on the process. So if you in your work feel that you are not growing, you feel like you're not advancing, it's probably because you are thinking and acting too much like an employee rather than the CEO. So the CEO of you need to come to the office and do your damn job. Maybe the employee can take a day off or a half a day off, the employee version of you, because you're working too much. So maybe the employee needs to take a vacation day so the CEO version of you can actually get some room to breathe and some room to think and actually think about the overall direction of where you're going. This is one of the biggest challenges that I see a lot of solopreneurs, freelancers, even entrepreneurs have, is that you become so much of an employee that you're giving all of your resources to the employee tasks, probably because you're good at them. Probably because it feels like you're being productive because you are always busy and active. And hell, maybe it's producing results. Maybe you are selling products. Maybe you have clients. Maybe you are building up your fan base or your audience or building your brand, whatever you consider to be progress. Maybe it's actually happening. But the problem is all you're doing are employee tasks. So even though you are active, you're running on a treadmill. Everybody here knows what a treadmill is, right? Or a stair climber, what they call it, stairmaster, an elliptical machine, an exercise bike. They're all the same thing. You're putting in all this effort. You are actually moving. You're breaking a sweat. You're burning calories. But when you get done, you realize you are still in the same damn spot you were in 45 minutes ago. That's what happens when you get so caught up in being the employee version of you and you never focus on being the CEO. That's why you need to, again, give yourself the mental space, give yourself the time. You must have the discipline to say, all right, I'm not going to be the CEO for the next 30 minutes. I'm not going to be the CEO for the next 3 days. I'm not going to be the CEO for the next 25 minutes while I re-listen to this episode that Dre put out. And I got to think about the overall direction of where I'm going. Because if I keep doing what I'm already doing, is this going to move me forward or is it going to keep me doing the same thing in the same spot? And the problem with doing the same thing in the same spot, ladies and gentlemen, even if it's working for you, is that everything around you is slowly, sometimes fastly, that's a new word, fastly, changing. So if you keep doing the same things, even though they're working right now, eventually the ground will shift under your feet and the things that you're doing now that are working will slowly not be working anymore. And if the CEO version of you has not taken the time to notice this, to distinguish the forest from the trees, as they say, then you're going to get left behind even though everything you were doing was working. This is what happens when we focus too much on being the worker instead of being the visionary. So all of you, again, this is not, you don't have to own a business to utilize everything that I've said here today. You need to look at yourself as your life as a business and ask yourself, how am I moving forward in life? Am I spending too much time focusing on maintaining where I'm at, or am I looking at how am I going to advance from where I'm at? As we recap today's topic, which is understanding the differences between CEO you and employee you. Again, the book Principles by Ray Dalio. Go buy it. You should have bought it in the time that you've been listening to me. Point number 1. CEO U sees the big picture of what is going on and what needs to happen, while the employee carries out the task and gets things done in the trenches, so to speak. CEO works on the business, the employee works in the business, and the CEO has to make smart decisions about how to utilize their employees. And if you are your only employee, that means how to utilize yourself. You need to be smart about that. Don't just get up and just work without thinking about, how is this making sense? How is this moving me forward? Point number 2, employee version of you may not be the best option for every single job that you are doing. I knew a guy who said he loved doing every aspect of his work, even down to the accounting, the customer service, and the bookkeeping. But I said to him, if you could only pick one job, would you be doing one of those? He said, no, I'd do the overall creative direction of my company, and which is exactly what a CEO needs to be thinking about. Where does the employee version of a CEO best serve the company, and where can you not be replaced? There's another question you can ask yourself. What is it that Steve Jobs could do that nobody else at Apple could do? Because anything that somebody else could do, it would probably be better for Steve to delegate that to someone else, which he probably did, instead of him doing it himself, because he's in the way. And he probably makes more per hour than that person makes. So it just makes good business sense to delegate a task if someone else can do it for less than what it would cost for you to be doing it. And again, that cost can be an opportunity cost, ladies and gentlemen, not just in actual dollars, but opportunity cost, which is every hour you spend doing the task. If your time is worth $100 an hour, that task better be worth $100 or more. Otherwise, you are losing money. Do the math. Point number 3. And actually, more on point number 2. This is about delegation. Listen to episodes 664 and episode 1100 on delegation. Just because you can do a task does not mean you should do a task. Learn to delegate. Go on Fiverr.com and just delegate a couple tasks just so you can get your feet wet and get used to doing it. You must delegate work if you're going to shape the overall vision of your life/business. Point number 3. The employee's job is to do things to maintain what's happening. The CEO's job is to decide what's happening. The CEO decides how things will move forward and grow. The employee's job is to just keep doing what they're told to do. That's the difference between the two. And you have to tell yourself as an employee where to work, and you got to look at the big picture and decide, is this making sense? CEO decides the direction of the efforts. If you feel like you are not growing or advancing in your sport, in your business, in your life, it is because you are spending too much time as an employee and not enough time as a CEO. So you as the CEO must make a executive decision to tell the employee to take a day off so you can focus on the overall direction and growth of the business of your life. This is what the CEO is supposed to do, and every one of you is a CEO in the business of your life, even if you're not a CEO in a specific company. Again, all of this material, all of the materials that I have referenced here today, I've talked about several different topics. I would assume here, and this is just being modest, 30 different episodes of this show have been referenced here today. All of them can be access rather than acquired, as a member of the game group. Keep listening. I'll tell you exactly how to get to it. Work on your game. Dre all day.